Welcome to Downshift, guys. My name is Paulo.
And my name is Matt, and this is Toyota's latest Sequoia in the Max Attack Off-Road TRD Pro spec. And we have some pretty strong opinions, I think, on this one, so strap in for the best and the rest of the new Sequoia. But before we get started, what's new for the Sequoia for 2024? Well, there's a couple little things. They're small, but one is there's a new nightshade trim, which adds some blacked out styling for a more aggressive and, I guess, more presence-having look. And then also, you can now get the TRD off-road package available for your 4x4 Platinum trims. But with that, let's get into the video. And the first and probably my least favorite thing about the Sequoia is the cargo space. You know, this is a 3-row vehicle. This is kind of the point of the vehicle. With your 3rd row up, you have 11.5 cubic feet of space. That's really, really small. You can slide the seats all the way up. You get about 22 cubic feet of space. Now it's interesting, and this may or may not be relevant, but I was doing research on a Honda Civic that I'm going to be shooting later, and the Honda Civic in the hatchback form with the rear seats up gets 25 cubic feet of space. So this has less 3rd row space or trunk space with the 3rd row up than a Honda Civic. But let's say you want it all the way down. You can slide them back. And then you do have power recline here, which I guess is a pretty nice luxe feature, and I would expect that at this price point, which we'll talk about more later. And with these down, you're getting about 49 cubic feet of space. Again, that's pretty good. The Honda Civic hatchback, and I'm sorry to make this comparison, but that does 48 cubic feet with the rear seats down in the hatch. And you see here, this is where you start to use this clever, and I'm using air quotes on clever, storage tray system. And then they flap out like this, so you can kind of level off the load floor. And it's just not really that practical. With the 2nd row down, you're looking at like 87 cubic feet of space, and all of these numbers are less than you're gonna get in the Yukon, the Suburban, the Tahoe, the Expedition. Like, it's just not that practical from a cargo space perspective. But Paulo, tell them a little bit about why this is.
Yeah, the main reason is because they needed to store the battery somewhere for the hybrid system, the iForce Max that you have here. And obviously we have a rear axle on the back, so it's hard to put it in between that. And they had to find room. So this is kind of where they decided to do it. So unfortunately, that just means that your cargo area is not going to be flat.
Well, let's fold these things back up and talk about the 3rd row. And then to get into the 3rd row, you pull this little handle here on the side of the seat, and it kind of gets itself out of the way. You've got your running board, you've got a nice little step here, you've got some crazy all-weather floor mats, and you get into the 3rd row. Now, immediately you can see my knees are up at my chest, and that's because, just like in the trunk, the battery and everything is living down here, so the floor is really high. You can also see that that means I don't really have any headroom. I'm 6'1". I do not have headroom back here. And we're gonna fold this 2nd row back. See, I'm already running into problems. And it looks okay. It looks like I have good room. This is about the room that I'd have in a Suburban, but remember, with the trunk, this is all the way back with the seats. So to get any trunk space at all, I have to be like this. And now all of a sudden, I'm gonna break or sprain an ankle, and I don't have any space. And this isn't even all the way forward. My feet literally don't fit under the seat in front of me with this all the way forward. So it's just not a practical 3rd row. Everything else in the segment is going to get you more space in the 3rd row. You do have nice stuff. You do have power recline for your 3rd row. You do have dual cup holders, and you have 3rd row window shades. But from a space perspective, it's just not going to work for any adults. And actually from there, we'll check out the 2nd row. Now be careful with the running boards. They are liabilities when they have ice on them. But you come in here, and it's actually not bad. From a space perspective, I have about 39 inches of legroom. The reason that we have to put it on the negative side of the video is that some of the rivals are offering 42, but it's marginal. You're not going to notice. What you are going to notice is, much like the 3rd row, headroom is an option, or is a problem for those with nubs. Don't love that, but again, it's kind of okay. You look at your windows, and you do have window shades, which is nice. You've got vents, you've got a climate zone, but you can't get heated seats back here, which is something that you're getting pretty much everywhere else. And if you don't go for the body-on-frame SUV, if you're really honest with yourself about how much off-roading you're gonna do, you can spend 60% of the money that you're gonna spend here and get heated and cooled seats in your back row. But you do have a nice panoramic roof, which I think is new for 2024 TRD Pros. So it's a mix of good and bad, but just with some of the size and the fact that you can't get heated rear seats, we have to put it on the negative side, unfortunately. And I want to talk about the off-road stuff, and this is kind of hard because we're putting it on the bad side, but it's neither good nor bad. There's pros and cons, of course, to all things. I will say, with all the snow and the terrible weather that we've had, we don't get to take this thing to Road America because they have 3-foot snow drifts, and I don't care how good this thing is, I'm not going to lose Toyota's press car in a huge 3 or 4 foot snowdrift. That's somebody else's problem, not mine. If you want to see this thing really perform off-road, Driving Sports TV, Ryan's Outfit does a great snow test off-road. I think they're in like the Pacific Northwest. Go watch that. But we're going to talk about some of the pros and cons for the off-road portion of what this Sequoia TRD represents. Now you still have great stuff like multi-terrain select, downhill assist control, and of course underneath you've got your TRD skid plate and your red sway bars, and you do have a rear locker versus the LSD that you had last year. And of course you got your solid rear axle versus a lot of the competitors are using multi-link, or independent suspension. But on paper, there are a couple issues. You do have Fox shocks here, which is great and translates to better ride and articulation, suspension travel, but you only get 1/2 inch of lift from that, and your remote reservoir is only on the rear. And ground clearance comes in at just 9.1 inches versus on the Timberline for the Expedition, you get over 10 inches. And you've got Falcon Wild Peak tires here. They're 33 inches versus the 32 you get in the Tundra TRD Pro, but they're not as legitimate as the ATW3s that you would get from like the open market. They're not peak rated and the lugs aren't as deep as you would get from the normal tire. You also got TRD upper control arms, which is kind of cool, but your front approach angle is 23 degrees and your departure angle on the rear is about 20 degrees. So it's a combination of good and bad, but there's just a couple things that really make me scratch my head and think, well, why have they done this? Why have we only gotten 1/2 inch of suspension lift? And there's something going on with the all-wheel drive system that Paulo will talk about right now.
Yeah, I think Matt didn't mention it, but I think it's definitely worth mentioning, as it only has a part-time 4-wheel drive system. It does not have 4-wheel drive auto, which is very frustrating because...
I mean, that's a big... Every competitor is bringing 4 auto.
Yeah.
Every single one.
I think
Toyota's the only one not.
I'll talk about my experience when we're actually driving, but I had an issue with that this week. And then lastly, I just think it's kind of ridiculous that a Toyota TRD Pro does not have front tow hooks. I mean, literally,
TRD Pro.
Everything else in this segment you can get front
Pro.
tow hooks on, except for this.
And then there's the almighty dollar. And this thing is just more expensive. At base, in TRD Pro, this is just a very expensive vehicle. As tested, it's about $83,000, but what does it start at and where is some of the competition coming in?
Starts at $61,000 and the TRD Pro starts at $79,000, as Matt mentioned. This is spec'd out at $83,000. Fully spec'd out Tahoes and Suburbans are a lot cheaper than this as well, a few $1,000s.
Yeah, and the Expedition is going to be cheaper as well, I believe. So it is a very expensive option, and it does have some flaws, as we've seen. And then we're going to talk about some of the things behind the wheel. And the driving experience we'll talk about in the pros and the cons. And the cons are just a couple little things here. The first thing, and really kind of the thing that bugs me most, is the constant beating of fake V8 noise into the cabin and into your ears every time you get near the throttle. We don't have the 5.7 V8 anymore, and I know that some people are miffed by that, but I don't need the constant rah every time I go near the throttle to remind me that I don't have it. And then in terms of steering, there's a little bit of deadness on center, a little bit of play, but there's nothing. It's nothing more than you would expect from something like a body-on-frame, truck-based SUV. But we talk about the suspension, and this is kind of a double-edged sword in and of itself. On the one hand, you have a solid rear axle and Fox shocks, which is great for off-roading, hence it's here in the TRD Pro. Makes total sense. The only thing is, you have to be really honest with yourself about how much off-roading you're doing, because the suspension here is a little bit chattery over smaller to medium-sized road imperfections, just normal bumps here. And here in Wisconsin, in the Midwest, you're gonna have stuff like that. So if you aren't gonna do that much off-roading, something like a Tahoe or Suburban will give you an air suspension with a little bit more finesse, a little bit more refinement on road. But if you are gonna use, this thing as it's intended for off-roading, this is a great setup to have. And the last thing we'll talk about on the con side, and then I promise we'll talk about some of the good things about this thing, but we have to talk about MPG and fuel efficiency. Now, the Sequoia, no matter what trim you get, TRD Pro or not, only comes with the hybrid, with the iForce Max engine. You get plenty of torque, and that's all good, but you hear the word hybrid and you think fuel economy, you think benefit there. And that's not really what you're getting here in the real world. The EPA has rated this thing, and they probably haven't been driving it in Milwaukee when it's 10 degrees out, but they've rated it at 1920 MPG combined, and that's not at all what we've been seeing this week. I babied it in eco mode, and I got 14.7. Paulo drove it a little bit more like a normal person and got like 14.7. So we didn't even achieve 15 MPG combined. And then there's the 10 speed. It's okay in normal driving, but at parking lot speeds, it's a little confused, and this thing's just big and heavy.
Yeah, it weighs 6,150 pounds, And other competitors are also bringing similar or better fuel economy with naturally aspirated V8s. You think of like the Suburban, the Tahoes, those are rated at 15, 16.
I think even like 16, 17.
16, 17,
which
is better than what we experienced this in the real world. They also offer diesels, which you're going to get the high teens and even 20s.
Yeah, and you pair that with the fact that you've dropped cylinders here from the old 5.7 V8, you've introduced turbos and you've introduced hybrids. So the engine is running under higher compression, higher strain, you've also got more complexity, there's more that could, in theory, go wrong, and you start to worry, and I don't want to use the R word in a video, but you start to worry about reliability at that point, versus just the simpleness of having a V8. If they're going to pump this much V8 sound into the cabin, should we just have a V8? I don't know.
An option would be nice.
I think with that, let's talk about some of the good things. You know, instant oomph, this thing does 0 to 60 in like 4.5 seconds, and it shouts fake V8 noise at you.
It's not 4.5 seconds.
That's what you said.
I was joking, because you
can't, I'm very impressionable.
Dude, I said it's 5.7.
What? And the good stuff starts with the other side of the engine, and that's the power and torque. Now this may have 2 less cylinders, but you have a lot more power than pretty much anything else in the segment. I think aside from the Expedition gets you 3 more horsepower, but here you're getting 437 horsepower and 583 pound-feet of torque, almost 600 pound-feet of torque. And it's the electric torque from the hybrid system, that 0 RPM immediate grunt. And that's good for 0 to 60 in what, 5.7 seconds?
Yes.
Definitely not 4.5 seconds. But it is just very, very powerful and very torquey, and that has a benefit at the back end of the car. And that, of course, is with the towing capacity. Sequoia maxes out at 9,020 pounds of max towing capacity, and that's, of course, with the TRD Pro here. And that's just a lot. That's more than you're getting in everything, pretty much everything else, everything with the V8, and I think even some of the diesel options. So you're getting a lot of towing here.
Yeah, you are.
Anything else? Yeah, you are.
Yeah, that's a true fact.
Hard to argue there. And then moving on to mine, and probably Paulo's favorite thing about this, and it's just kind of the look, the presence, the attitude that you get here, especially with the TRD Pro package on this thing. It looks mean, it looks aggressive, and it looks, well, it looks a lot like the Tundra TRD Pro, but even a little bit more handsome, I would say. Now, for 2024, you get this Terra color, and it's hard to see here because it's covered in salt, but I'll lay over B-roll clip. It's kind of like a burnt orangish brown. I think it looks cool. If it was me personally, I would take last year's TRD Pro color. The Solar Octane went crazy hard. If not, maybe a white. But I do like the Terra. It's a little bit different. Now up here, of course, you've got the Toyota Heritage grille, which is very classic TRD Pro. Down here, you've got a light bar, one of the only vehicles coming from the factory with a light bar, so you love to see that. But you also have the Raptor lights, or the, I guess what, the 87-inch marker lights that you're supposed to have. But the interesting thing here is on the Sequoia, it's 0.4 inches, 0.4, not even half an inch. It's just a little too near. It doesn't actually need these. If it was like half an inch wider, it would need them, but it technically doesn't. You've got LED fogs up here, and then around the side, you've got 18-inch BBS forged TRD Pro wheels. These are pretty cool. They're wrapped in the Falcon Wild Peak tires, which we talked about earlier. And of course, you've got this camo etching on all your wheel arch cladding. Can you tell them about this? Because I'm going to get upset if I start talking about it.
We're both not fans of the running board. Obviously, it's got a lot of ice on there, and it's honestly just in the way, and I don't think that you necessarily need it. I think it'd be better if you...
It doesn't come out long, like far enough to actually be helpful.
Right, I think it'd be better if you had like a rock slider there instead of an actual...
It would. Either take it off and get more clearance, or make it wider and actually usable. But you've got black treatments for your A-pillar, and then all the way through here. Very cool roof rack up there. And then around back, it's a nice and simple design. You can, of course, use kick gesture for your tailgate. We talked about the trunk earlier, or you can press this little button here and then lift up the rear glass. It doesn't go down like in the 4Runner or in the Tundra, but it does have a little bit of practicality, kind of like a Lexus LX. And of course, you've got dual TRD exhaust out back, which doesn't make V8 sounds. And then you also get a lot of features in here, both for luxury comforts and also for your technology. Now, some of the luxury stuff, we talked about you don't get heated rear seats. I'm over it. But you do get heated seats up here, 3 level, and you also get cooled seats up here, 3 level. You do have a heated steering wheel, and these things do get pretty hot. It's nice. And like we mentioned, you do have a panoramic roof. So you get some pretty decent luxury stuff. But in terms of the technology, you don't have a head-up display. I might kind of like that, but you do have a completely digital instrument cluster. It doesn't do a whole lot of changing. It kind of changes colors, and then you can change a little bit of what you see over here between like fuel economy and your driver assist stuff, but it doesn't do a whole lot. On your steering wheel, you do have the TRD. We'll talk about that a little bit more with the interior design, but I want to talk about what you have here. This is Toyota Safety Sense 2.5. It's a good system. This and the Hyundai system, I think, are pretty similar, and those are some of our favorite systems in all the cars that we test. But then over here, you've got your big 14-inch infotainment system, wireless Apple CarPlay. You also have really nice 360 cameras, and the TRD Pros get the special trail cam, so you can see your side tolerances for your trail running as well as a front camera. So that's pretty nice. And then what else? Oh, you've got, of course, your dumb egg view.
Yeah, I don't like this.
You can even change the color, but I don't know why you'd want to do any of that. What else?
Massive screen. A few things here. The driver assist features, I think the one thing that I think it's missing, especially compared to like the Tahoe and the Chevy, is like the lane keep assist. I think it's definitely going to be better on the Chevy and the GMC. Heated seat only heats up on the outside, not like on the inside of it. So like the top of your palm will get warm, but your fingertips that are wrapped underneath won't. That's pretty frustrating. Outside of that, just an overall comment, I think that this is the best looking interior. I know we're going to talk interior in a bit, but I just think the screen size and everything, digital dash, this is by far the best in the segment.
Yeah, this thing went from being very old looking to very, very modern looking. And earlier in the video, we talked about some of the not so great things behind the wheel, but there are some really nice things behind the wheel too. And the first is kind of the power. It makes the noise, but it's very torquey, it's got a lot of grunt, and it is very smooth. When you're not asking the 10-speed to do a bunch of small, little, minute, finessey details, it's great. We talked about the noise, fine. The ride is a little bit chattery, but ultimately, it's gonna be great for off-roading. At bigger bumps, it handles it really well. And it's just kind of nice. I mean, you sit up high, the visibility is great, and I feel nice and in control. This thing has a part-time 4x4 system, which we talked about earlier as not being ideal, but even still with it this week, it's been really snowy and then immediately plunged into single digits, if not sub-zero, and of course sub-zero with wind chill. And this thing felt pretty confident the whole week. And one of the last things we'll talk about is just kind of the interior design and vibe. And we talked about it a little bit on the exterior. I just kind of like the look and the attitude that you get here, especially with the TRD Pro. It's kind of got that really, rugged, off-road, outdoorsy look to it from the factory. And I think it just looks cool. Paulo mentioned it a little bit earlier, but I think it just looks nice and modern. I don't know how I feel about this massive Toyota here across the dash, but you do have a huge screen. All of your controls are pretty physical and they're like rubberized. Now it's a little bit overdone maybe in some ways, but you've got the TRD steering wheel with the noon marker. Your seats are camo perforated, and of course they've got TRD on the seats themselves, so they're kind of interesting looking. But what do you think about the look?
Again, I think it's probably one of the best interior spaces in the whole segment. I do think the TRD is probably just done up a little bit too much for my personal liking. I think the biggest thing on that is just you can't get these seats any other way. This is just how it comes.
Gotta love camo.
Camo inserts?
You have to love camo if you're gonna get a TRD Pro, either the Tundra or the Sequoia. And then I think there's just a couple little things that we should touch on before we go for a drive with Paulo. Like for one, there's little TRD Easter eggs all through your amber lights, your marker lights. You've got TRD on your center hubcaps. You've got TRD on your skid plate. TRD, I can't tell if you're seeing any of this because I'm under the car, but TRD on your shock bodies and TRD on your upper control arms. And you also have TRD on your exhaust here, which makes it less TRDs than the Tundra TRD Pro, but still plenty to let you know you're driving something special. And when you're closing the door, especially this rear one, you have to close it pretty hard. Now, not as hard as a G-Wagon, but if you close it just soft, it's not gonna close all the way. So you gotta give it a little bit of muscle. And interestingly now, Toyota in their body-on-frame trucks are one of the more American options you can get, and they want you to know, with this little Easter egg under the hood, are indeed in Michigan, and it's built or born in Texas. And your rear glass doesn't roll down like the 4Runner, but you push this little button, and it lifts out. Kind of cool. And it feels kind of race car on the interior with a flat-ish bottom TRD, noon marker, red for your gear selector, and red for your TRD start button. You also have a digital rear view mirror, so if you have stuff blocking the back, can't see out of it, throw the digital rear view mirror on, you can see everything. And it wouldn't be a Toyota review without talking about the egg mode, which has never helped anyone, but at least you can change the color of your Sequoia. But with that, let's grab Paulo and go for a drive. lot of sounds happening.
A lot of sounds and
most of it's fake V8.
And a lot of power though too.
Yeah, loads of torque. 0 to 60 in 3.5 seconds.
4.5.
4.5.
No, it's
5.7.
like, yeah. I was gonna say.
But it does feel quick-ish, you know. The thing that I really can't stand is the fake V8 noise. Like.
Yeah, I just wish you could kind of adjust the levels.
Yeah, like give me the option. And in the Tundra, I looked for like half an hour through the system. I couldn't find a way to turn it off, or even just down. Like I don't need to turn it off, just down.
Yeah.
Anyway, what do you? Let's start with your pros. What do you like?
Pros? Yeah. So I think we might share similar pros and cons here. Let's find out. But
Progs and crons.
Yeah, my first favorite pro is the interior and exterior styling and just look at the car. I think it looks the business, looks great on the exterior. Love the TRD package. And then the interior, I think it's one of the more modern ones in this segment. So that's my personal one. And then the second one is you can tow a lot in your off-road spec car. I think this can tow the most in the segment, especially with the four-wheel drive system that you get here.
Yep.
So that's a big W. Probably one of the main reasons why you would get this is its towing capacity.
Yes.
1920, right? 9,000?
Yeah, 9,020 pounds in the TRD Pro.
And then my last thing is power. I obviously love fast cars and things that move quickly, and this satisfies that itch for sure.
This is the quickest, I think, of the body-on-frame three-row SUVs. Loads of power, loads of torque. So yeah, I can't fault it there. And yeah, for me, it's all attitude. Like, I can pick anything off of a list. I think we talked about this a little bit off camera. Like, in a vacuum, if nothing else exists, I would drive this, and like, as long as I didn't have to sit in the back seat, I'd be like, okay, yeah, I can vibe with this. I love the look. It looks cool. The interior feels cool. But yeah, it's just when you get back there, let's talk about our cons then.
Yeah. And my first one is, although I just said I love the power here, I do kind of have to knock it for the one powertrain option. And that kind of leads into the second point, which is what you were just alluding to, is you can't have a flat cargo space. And I think in something like this, where you're probably going to want to do overlanding, you want to do off-roading, you're probably going to want to haul around luggage, other sorts of things, recovery, kits, whatever the case may be. Just, it's awkward back there. It's an awkward design, and that's because of the battery pack for the hybrid system that you get here. Yeah,
I think you had mentioned it again off camera, where it's like, this is basically an SUV Tundra, but the Tundra gets this engine as the upgraded TRD Pro engine, but then it gets the non-hybrid version of this. And I'm thinking, if you did that, then maybe you get a little bit worse fuel economy, but your towing would still probably be pretty good. And then you would have a lot more space in not only the trunk, but the third row as well. So I think that would just make it a more practical overall package. And then you could probably take another 10 grand off the price. So all of these things that we had issues with start to go away.
Yeah, I think you alleviate probably our biggest concern, and a lot of people what I've seen on the web as well, if you give this another powertrain that doesn't have the hybrid option. And then the third thing is the price. It's very expensive, and I think they have good reason. It's a completely refreshed interior last year, but it's just more expensive than basically everything else in the segment, and I just don't know if it's justified for me personally.
No, I would agree. So then the question becomes, what would you have? So we've got Tahoe Suburban twins, Yukon XL, Ford Expedition, and then there's the Nissan thing, the Armada, which no.
Yeah, I think I would probably get the Tahoe or the Suburban. The Yukon is basically the same interior, just more money, just more badging, just more GMC badging.
That's kind of the GMC thing. Yep.
But I think that those things kind of look good as well. They also have front tow recovery hooks. This thing does not have that.
Yeah. No, I was in a Suburban like 2 years ago. I don't remember if you drove that one, but I mean, that thing had the air suspension. It was V8. It was smooth. It sounded good. It was the high country, so it was like the really expensive loaded up one. And I remember liking it. Like, it was good. Yeah. Like, there was no problem with it. If you want like the off-road one, I would go Expedition Timberline. You're going to get more ground clearance. It's going to look a little crazy, and you'll have a more practical, back area with third row and trunk. So yeah, if you're going to off-road, I would go Timberline. If you're not going to off-road, I would go Tahoe or Suburban, because you get air suspension, and that's awesome.
I think this makes a lot of sense if towing is the most important thing to you in your three-row SUV.
Yeah, we talked about it too. Like, you have to be really honest with yourself about what you're doing. How much off-roading are you doing? How much towing are you going to be doing? And if you're going to be towing 9,000 pounds, okay, but you know, what's a Tahoe tow? Like
yeah,
8,000?
yeah, everything
You're
else
pretty
is
close.
yeah, it's like within 1,000 pounds. So
Yeah.
it's like,
so
yeah.
I think we have mixed opinions on this one, but let us know your opinions down in the comments. Thank you to Toyota for letting us have a go in your Sequoia TRD Pro. Thank you to you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.
Yeah, we'll see you next time, guys.
Bye.